Hello everyone, this is Jason Merkle from HobbyZone Hobby, and we are out at the flying field today to unbox and assemble what is probably, in my opinion, one of the best trainer aircraft for the first time RC pilot that there's ever been. This is the HobbyZone AeroScout S 1.1 meter. And a real quick note, so this was the box for the previous version. By the time you guys are seeing this video, there will be a brand new version out that now includes real flight and, more importantly, a new smart transmitter model file. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. That'll be slightly different there on the box. We'll put a little shot here so you guys can see what that new box looks like. But that newest iteration is very exciting because it takes all the things that we've learned over the years with the AeroScout, all the improvements we've made, including what you note here, we have the stronger fuselage. All of those things now are incorporated into the latest iteration. And on top of that, we now include a copy of Real Flight Trainer Edition in the box. And again, most importantly, we also have that STF file, that smart transmitter file, for when you upgrade your transmitter down the road, or if you buy the HobbyZone Basic version, which we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We also cover that in other videos as well. So I'm gonna get this out of the way real quick, and we're gonna focus on unboxing and assembling the airplane. Now, I did cheat a little bit. I unboxed and already took out some of the extra packing materials just so it's out of the way, so it saves us some time and effort. And a real quick note is we are out at the field because I did want to show that you could go to potentially a local hobby shop, buy this. You could take it right to the field that you want to fly it, and as long as you also buy a battery and charger, which you do need, even if you buy the ready-to-fly basic version, you can literally assemble it at the field. You don't need any special tools, no glue, no special assembly techniques or anything out of the ordinary. The only screw that you need a screwdriver for is actually the screwdriver is included in the box, so that's really exciting. So real quick note that this is the package of the instruction manual and things that you get with the new version product, and it does have a full instruction manual, which is great. It covers all the details of everything you could possibly need to know in multiple languages. It's all in here. We are not going to use that today because we are going to use the quick start guide to assemble the model. We'll get to that here in a second. But real quick, I also want to point out that, again, this newest version does include Real Flight Trainer Edition, a full copy, not a trial version, a full copy of the Real Flight Trainer Edition simulator in the box. So this card, you'll see it in the box. On the back here, there will be a Steam key that you use to download the software from Steam onto a PC. You do need a PC computer that has Windows 10 or 11. So it doesn't currently work on Mac. Sorry about that, guys. We are working on that for the future. So this is a phenomenal tool, a great value. The full version, again, is in the box. The AeroScout is in the simulator, so you can practice flying this airplane on the simulator, along with most of our other trainer aircraft from the HobbyZone brand, the E-Fly brand, even the Blade helicopter brand. And then on top of that, after you put 2 hours of flying time in on the simulator, you unlock some of our next step airplanes. So aircraft that are more advanced, that have more capabilities, and after 4 hours, you unlock even more. There's also extra flying fields that you unlock float flying, so it's a great incentive to practice. You earn those extra aircraft, those extra fields after you put that extra time in. So again, be sure to take advantage of this. I taught myself to fly helicopters on a simulator like this. I taught myself how to do aerobatics, including 3D aerobatics and hovering an airplane with a simulator like this. So I know from firsthand experience, this simulator can make or break your success. Something else we include in the box is a little pre-flight checklist and a post-flight checklist on a small card that's laminated so you can put it in your pocket, take it with you to the field. This is a great tool for your first couple of times when you go out flying. You may not know all of the steps, all the things that you need to do to get the airplane ready to fly, get it into the air successfully. We will cover that in a separate video as well, but again, that card is included in the box. So let's move on to the quick start guide, and then we'll unbox and assemble the airplane. So the first step here, it does say practice of real flight. That really is a very, very important step. There's a QR code here, which also directs you to a page where we will have information on compatible PCs. So step number 2 is to charge the battery. So in an environment like this where, we want to be able to fly the airplane after we assemble it, we are going to charge the battery, and I've already actually done that before we got here today, but you will potentially be buying this battery and this charger. We sell in a power stage bundle from Spektrum. It's the S120 USB-C charger and also a 3-cell 2200 smart G2 battery. And the benefit of this combination is you save a little bit of money and it works perfectly for this aircraft. Now, we do also sell additional chargers, larger chargers that charge faster. But what's nice about this is you can charge from pretty much any power source that can power USB. You can charge it in your car, you can charge it with a booster battery. It is a little slower than some of the larger and more expensive charger options. We cover that in a different video. We'll link to that below. But this is a great way to start. So again, power stage bundle from Spektrum includes that S120 charger, 3-cell 2200. The first step, again, it does cover how to power on the charger, to plug it in, and to get it charging. So your charger may be different than what's shown here or what I just showed you, but be sure to get your battery charged and get it charging while you assemble the airplane. And then the next first step is unboxing the transmitter. So if you buy the RTF Basic version, the Ready to Fly Basic version, it includes the transmitter. We do also sell a Bind and Fly Basic version. The only difference between those two is the Bind and Fly Basic version does not include the transmitter. So the Ready to Fly Basic version is probably what most people who have never flown RC before are going to want to buy. It's a better value, you save money, and this is a very simple transmitter, but it's fully capable of flying this airplane. It's also capable of flying next step airplanes. So a lot of the airplanes that you'll graduate to after learning to fly this airplane, whether it's a warbird, like our very popular E-Flight T28 1.1 meter, or something like a jet, like our very popular E-Flight Habu SS 50mm, or even one of the very popular E-Flight Timber series models, this transmitter can also be used with those. So I do strongly recommend buying the Ready to Fly Basic version because it's a better value, it's a lot easier to get it done and into the air, and more importantly, this transmitter can be used for other products down the road. The other exciting thing is that with this newest version, we do include this USB connector in the back. There's a small board in there that allows you to control the real flight simulator with this transmitter. So in the past, this transmitter did not have that capability unless you used a wireless dongle. Now you can use this transmitter with the included USB-C cable to plug it into your PC to actually operate the real flight PC simulator. So again, really, really great additional value that you can get in the box with this newest iteration. But for today, we're gonna be worried about using this to fly our aircraft. So the first step is to slide the battery cover off the back. And then inside the box here, there are AA batteries. We're gonna open those and we're going to install those in the transmitter. It's pretty easy to do. It's pretty self-explanatory, but that is again, one of the first steps in the process. So once you install all 4 batteries in the transmitter and click with the correct polarity, which is marked inside of the battery tray there, you're gonna slide the battery door on. It does have some tracks and rails that you have to line it up in, so you start right at the very bottom and you slide it up. It's a little bit complicated when you get near that PCB with the USB port, but then it snaps into place and you are ready to go. We can set that off to the side here. Next up, we're gonna pull out some of the parts that are in here. We've got the landing gear, which of course is important. We are going to use that today. Now, you can actually fly the airplane without the landing gear installed. That's something we'll cover in another video. But for the sake of today's purposes, we're going to install the landing gear and fly it that way. The second step in the instructions here in the quick start guide is to basically install that landing gear. So we're going to pull the fuselage out of the box here, set this off to the side, and show you those steps. So the first step is to install the main landing gear, which is very easy to do. What's really great about it is there really isn't, it doesn't matter left or right. You're just gonna slide these into the slots in the fuselage and they literally snap into place. So you'll see here, just sliding it in, and when you hear it snap and click and you pull on it and it can't come out, you're done. Do the same thing on the other side. And that's it. Now our main landing gear is installed. The next step is to install the nose gear. This is the only place that we actually have to use a tool, a screwdriver in this case, which again, it is included in the box. We have a little small Phillips screwdriver here, so you don't even have to worry about bringing tools to the field if you're gonna do this at the field like we are. The most important thing is there's a flat spot on this shaft, and you wanna line that up with the screw. Now you may have to, like in this case, this is a brand new airplane. I see I'm gonna have to loosen the screw a little bit to make room to get the shaft in. Again, I'm gonna slide that down in there and line up that flat spot with the screw. So I'm gonna hold this in place, the wheel, while I tighten that screw down. And you can feel if you grab that flat spot. And when you do, the wheel shouldn't twist and turn around when you have that screw in there tight. And that's it. As easy as that to install the landing gear, which is pretty impressive that it goes together that quickly. So now that we have the landing gear installed, the next step is to install the horizontal tail surfaces. So for this, we're going to need there's a bag here with some carbon rods in it. We're gonna need the smaller diameter rod. It's actually a square tube, but we need that one first, and that's what we're gonna install the tail surfaces with. We also need the tail surfaces out of the box here. There is a left and a right. That is the right. Here is the left. Now, the trick to installing these is that you don't want to install them too tight against the fuselage. So first we're gonna slide a rod in to one side. Make sure it bottoms out in there. Now we're gonna slide it into the opening in the tail of the airplane here. I'm not gonna slide it all the way just yet. And then I'm going to install this other side. Now this is where it's important to make sure that you don't slide these too far together against the fuselage. There needs to be a little bit of a gap, so that way they're not rubbing when they move. So I've left just a little bit of a gap in there. You can see a little bit of light through, a little bit of gap in between the tails, the horizontal tails, and then this vertical tail section here. So I can move it there, but you just have to make sure that you don't have it too tight. Otherwise it will bind when it's trying to move, and that can cause problems for the controls and ultimately damage the servo that controls it. So now that we have the landing gear and the tail installed, the next step is to install the wing, which comes in two pieces to keep the box a little bit smaller. Also, you can potentially take the wing off and take it apart for easier storage and transport. So we're gonna move on to that step here. So first we need to pull the wings out of the box. Of course, we have a left wing panel, a right wing panel. Okay. We also need that other carbon tube that was in the package with the tube for the tail. So we're gonna pull that out. And the nice thing is that it's a very easy process to assemble the wing, just like it was to the tail. So we're gonna start with the left-hand panel here. We're gonna pull this wire lead that's tucked into the opening there. We're gonna pull that out of the way. We're gonna tuck, now we're gonna slide in that tube into the opening there. And then we do the same thing with the other side. So again, we're gonna remove that wire lead from that opening. And now we're gonna slide the two panels together. I'm gonna make sure those wire leads are hanging down so they don't get pinched. Slide it together. And when it's pretty much very little to no gap in the middle there, the wing is together and ready to install. So a couple important points here. We have these two wire leads coming out of the bottom here. And then in the airplane, we have two wire leads that are attached to the receiver. Now there is what we call a ferrite bead here, which cuts down on noise and potential interference. We do need to leave that in place. And what you'll see here is that in this particular example, the colors of the wire leads here in the airplane and on the connectors coming out of the wing, they don't match. And that's okay, that may happen. They may match, and if it does, great, just plug them in color to color. If they don't match, just reference that this is white, red, and black. Here we've got an orange, red, and brown. Basically, it's brown to black, it's orange to white. That's what we have to worry about plugging in. Now, this particular wire lead in the airplane here is what we call Y-harness. So it's taking these two leads and connecting them into one port on the receiver. So for that reason, it doesn't matter which connector from the wing we plug into the one inside the airplane. You can plug it in either or, it doesn't matter which direction. Now, down the road, when you get into more advanced aircraft, it may matter, but again, in this airplane, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you connect the proper colors together. So I'm gonna set the wing here in place. I'm gonna connect the first one. Again, I'm going to make sure that I connect the black to the brown. Plug it in, make sure it connects nice and securely, and then I'm gonna plug in the other one here as well. Again, lining up the black and the brown, which will then make the white and the orange line up. Plug that in there. Now, the next step is to make sure that this very large, heavy ferrite bead is kind of tucked away behind the receiver here, so it's out of the way, and also that these wire leads are inside the space in the fuselage, so that way they don't get in the way of securing the wing in place. So now you'll see I've got the wing set down. I have no wires coming out here, no wires coming out here. That's important before we install our thumb screws. And so that's another nice touch, is that these are thumb screws, we call them, because you can install them with your fingers, your thumb and your index finger there. There are Phillips heads on top in case you want to use a screwdriver. You don't really need to though. So the way that I install these is I start with the one in the back first. That one's pretty much always lined up. Now the front ones, you may have to wiggle the wing around a little bit to make sure that they slide into place. But get them just started. And then I go ahead and get the first front one a little bit snug. second front one a little bit snug. Go back to this back one. I'm gonna take it all the way snug, and these just have to be finger tight. You don't have to go very tight again. You don't have to use a screwdriver. So now that I got the back nice and tight, go back to the first one in the front and the other one in the front, and that is it. So now that we have the airplane assembled, before we proceed on to our pre-flight checklist and ultimately onto our first flights, we are going to check the controls or make sure the control surfaces are level, that they're all operating in the correct directions. And to do that, first, we need to have the battery prepared and ready to install in the airplane. So you'll probably have a brand new battery. If you do, you're likely going to need to apply some loop material from hook and loop material, Velcro as many people know it. You need to apply that to your battery. The airplane does include a small strip of this. You can use pretty much any adhesive-backed loop material. Inside the airplane is the hook material, but we always put the loop material on the battery whenever we can. So I already have that done on this particular one here. I'm going to remove this canopy hatch. It's both a canopy and it's also a hatch. I'm gonna put my fingers back here because there's a magnet in the back and a little tab in the front that keeps it in place. So again, I'm gonna slide it back in place. You'll see I'm gonna grab back here near the back, 2 fingers, and pull that away. Inside the battery compartment here, you'll see this is the wire lead for the battery to connect to. There's also a second lead in here, and this is what we call the bind plug or bind port lead. So this is an extension lead that goes to the receiver and is plugged into the bind port. Now, when you buy the Ready to Fly Basic version that comes with the DXS transmitter, this transmitter is already bound to the receiver that's installed in the airplane. So you shouldn't need to worry about binding again. If you buy the Bind and Fly Basic version, or if you ultimately change your transmitter with the Ready to Fly Basic version and need to bind to a different transmitter, you'll use the bind plug that also comes with the airplane. You'll plug it into that extension, and that will have the receiver enter bind mode when you connect the battery, so that way you can, again, bind it to a different transmitter. But we're not going to worry about that because most of you are going to have the Ready to Fly Basic version. DXS transmitter will already be bound to the receiver in here. So I'm just going to tuck that wire lead out of the way so it's not getting into the way of the servos or anything else. Then you'll see here we've got our hook material already applied from the factory, and there's also a loop of Velcro here, a strap, so to speak, which will help hold the battery in place. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set the battery in place so there's a little bit of space in front of it and that the wire leads are not touching the servos. These are your servos that control the elevator and the rudder and nose wheel. So I want to make sure the wires aren't running into that. I'm going to put our strap into place here, and then I want to make sure that there's enough space here so the tab on the front of the hatch can fit into place. I'm going to tuck the wires out of the way for now. I'm not going to plug the battery in. That's an important thing to keep in mind, and make sure that my hatch fits. So you can see it does. If you can't get the hatch into place, you likely have to move the battery a little bit further back to make room for that tab. But again, don't go so far back the wires get in the way of the servos. It's very, very important. Now, pop that back off. Before I plug the battery in on the airplane, this is an extremely, extremely important thing to remember. With all RC aircraft, radio controlled aircraft, you always want to turn on the transmitter first. Never plug the battery in on the aircraft until you have the transmitter turned on first. Otherwise, what can happen is interference or other controllers can potentially control the airplane if you have the battery plugged in and you don't have the transmitter that it's bound to already turned on. So that's important to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is there's a number of switches on the transmitter. So the first rule of thumb is, generally speaking, we typically start with all of the switches away from us. And you'll notice that all of the labels on the switches have 0, 1, some of them have 2. You want to make sure they're all in the 0 position, which is away from you. But the most important one to keep in mind is this switch here, which is the H switch on the back right-hand corner. This long switch here, this is what we call our throttle cut switch. It's extremely important for safety. You need to use this switch every time before you potentially fly the airplane, after you fly the airplane. So in this case, I have everything in my 0 position away from me, except this throttle cut I want to move to the 1 position. So I want to flip it back to the front towards me in the 1 position. That means throttle cut is turned on. Now, if I move the throttle stick and the airplane was turned on, the motor would not run. So this is very, very important for safety reasons. You never want to accidentally plug the battery into the airplane, bump this stick without knowing it, and then having the motor run unexpectedly. The propeller can do a lot of damage to the airplane, things around, and of course yourself. So you want to be very, very careful. Make sure that throttle cut is turned on. Now that that's turned on, I'm going to hold down the button to turn on the transmitter. Now that the transmitter is turned on, I'm going to plug the battery into the ESC in the airplane. So the connectors are keyed. They really only plug in one way. You could potentially force them if you wanted to the other way, but it probably won't work. So now I'm gonna plug those in. You're gonna hear a series of beeps coming from the motor and the electronic speed control. The control surfaces will move. So the receiver is initializing. The ESC is now armed. So the ESC stands for electronic speed control. That controls the power to the motor. Don't worry about that too much, but that's what's ultimately making the beeping of the motor. And again, our control surfaces for our servos have now initialized, our receiver is initialized, and we're ready to check our controls. So the next step is that on the transmitter, there's also this switch here on the left-hand shoulder. This is the B switch. This controls our flight modes. We have beginner mode, which is 0, intermediate, which is 1. We have experienced mode, which is 2. There's this third position here, again, labeled number 2. That's your experienced mode. You want to always check your control surfaces for level and for proper operation with the switch in the experienced mode in the 2 position. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna make sure that our controls are both level and moving in the correct direction. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at the ailerons, make sure that they're pretty level on both sides between the wingtip and the root. Wingtip and the root. Quick look at those. Usually from the factory, they're very close. Sometimes they're not quite perfect, and you do need to make a mechanical adjustment of the linkage to make sure that when they're in the neutral position, that they are level. The next thing I'm gonna check is the rudder, make sure that it's very straight, pretty much perfect, and that the elevator is pretty much level. And it is. So this one is very good from the factory. Again, some aircraft from the factory need a little bit of adjustment, especially more advanced aircraft. This is a step you never want to skip. You always want to make sure your control surfaces are what we call mechanically level, neutral. So that way it requires as little trim as possible when you actually go and fly the airplane in the air. The next step is we're going to check our controls to make sure they're operating in the correct directions. So the first thing we'll start with are our ailerons. So the right-hand stick, if I move it to the right, you'll see the right aileron goes up, the left aileron goes down. Go back to the middle. When I move it to the left aileron goes up, the right aileron goes down. That means our ailerons are moving in the correct directions. Next, we're going to check the elevator. Also the right-hand stick, but now we're going to pull up and down, or back and forward. So if I pull back on the stick, the elevator should move up. The back of the elevator, the trailing edge should move up. Go back to neutral, pull back on the stick again, pull down on the stick. It means up elevator. Go back to neutral. When I push forward on the stick or up on the stick, that basically it means down elevator. So again, you see the trailing edge of the elevator moves down. That pitches the nose of the airplane down. So that means our elevator is operating in the correct direction. So now we're going to check our rudder. So using the left-hand stick, you'll see that when I move the stick to the left, the rudder actually moves to the left. Go back to the beginning, the center here. When I move it to the right, the rudder should move to the right. Now, the rudder is also connected to the same servo as the nose wheel steering, so we can check to make sure that our steering is also going in the correct direction, which it should be. As long as the rudder is going in the correct direction, the nose wheel should be as well. So when I move it to the right, the nose wheel should move to the right. When I move it to the left, the nose wheel should move to the left. That makes sure it steers in the correct direction on the ground. So there you have it. We've checked all of our controls. Everything is working in proper directions. Everything is level, and we're ready for our first flight. But before we do that, we are going to proceed to the pre-flight checklist.